Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. So, if you are just joining us, welcome. And if you were a part of our first broadcast, sorry about that. We're going to start things all over again, and glad that you could join us today. I want to remind you that progressivechristianity.org sponsors the Moonshine Jesus Show. I hope you'll check out all of their wonderful resources. And today I am here with my good buddy Mark. And Mark is on vacation, sitting in front of the ocean. How are you today, Mark?
Man, I am doing just fine. It's horrible. What am I saying? It's horrible. I'm surrounded by sand and salty water. I mean, how can anyone enjoy themselves? All this wind, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It sounds absolutely awful.
It is.
I don't
recommend it. I don't recommend it to anyone. I will come and experience this on behalf of everyone. I'll make the sacrifice. You don't have to do it.
Well, thank you for taking that for us, Mark. And the rest of us will just sit wherever we are, living vicariously through you at the beach. So we are glad that you can join us today. We hope that you will follow us on social media, both the Moonshine Jesus Show and progressivechristianity.org. And I need to remind you, we're talking about She-Hulk today, and if you haven't seen it, this is not a spoiler-free zone. It is filled with spoilers. You're going to find out a lot of things. Here's something else I need to tell you, though. Mark and I have been pitching an idea back and forth. Mark and I we like to spend time together so much, and we're so into the stuff that we talk about that a lot of times we hang out afterwards and we talk for a while. And Mark, wouldn't it be fun if some other folks joined us? Do you think that might be a fun thing?
I think it would be great. You know, you and I have actually, but people don't realize, or some folks don't know just from talking to them, that there is no script in the Moonshine Jesus Show. We have an outline of what we're doing. We don't know what the other person came hoping to talk about. It's all just us having a genuine conversation. And sometimes the best conversations happen after we turn the cameras off. And we started going, this would be fun to have not just us, but have other people there participating and throwing their 2 cents in. So we thought, what if we did like a very low entry, like $5 a month or something, where we have a new login that we send out after the show, and everyone could join us after each show, and we could have this collective conversation. Because some of the best conversations happen there.
Absolutely, they do. And we know that, from following the comments, that you all have some incredible thoughts on these shows, too. And sometimes they're deeper than anything we ever came up with. So we would love for you all to be a part of the conversation. Yeah, that's right. And absolutely. I can guarantee you, Mark, that after we have finished our drinks, these folks that are coming in, they're going to have a lot of thoughts that are more coherent than we're going to have.
Absolutely.
By then.
You would think so. You would think so.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know. But speaking of drinks,
I would imagine. Yeah.
Speaking of drinks, what are you drinking?
Yes. Well, I am here on vacation, so my selection is limited of what we're going to do, but I still wanted to do something Hulk themed. So I remembered that first episode where they're at his bar that he's got there at the beach in Mexico. And in my head, I remember them maybe margaritas. Certainly, at least bars in Mexico make me think of margaritas. So I did something with an item I already have. One, I wanted it to be green. So I happen to have, not advertising for them, a truly lime margarita hard seltzer. But, in the show, She-Hulk, both She-Hulk and her counterpart are kind of Jennifer are kind of let's call them snarky, I guess, a little spicy, around the edges.
I think
I wanted something spicy, and so I had made, for a different drink that we like to have at cocktail hour while we're at the beach, I had made a cracked pepper infused vodka. So I took a whole shot of the regular drink off of this and put that in on top, and then moved it around, shook it up. And I have already tasted this, and man, it is delicious. I will be doing this again. I, though, am much more interested in what a man of resources like yourself decided to go with for his She-Hulk drink.
A man not limited to the cocktail fridge or whatever.
Yes, yes. All right.
Well, okay, so this is also inspired by the first episode, Mark.
Yeah?
And do you remember this scene where Jen and her cousin Bruce Banner are in the car and they're driving? And this is before she gets her She-Hulk powers. There are many things that are brilliant about She-Hulk, but this is one of the things I think is the most brilliant. She has come up with a life hack to eat Cheetos without getting Cheeto dust all over her fingers. You remember what it was?
No Cheeto fingers. She uses chopsticks.
It uses chopsticks,
That's
right?
a good move.
I had this moment where I'm like, man, I should have thought of that. That's great. And so I have got a drink that is inspired by that. It's called the Cheeto Hulk. The Cheeto Hulk drink.
Nice.
Here. Okay. And I've got to tell you, Mark, this sounds kind of disgusting. And I can't wait to see what it's going to taste like.
Oh, no.
You and I have had this conversation. Yeah, you and I have had a conversation, that we've never had anything gross. I think this one might be the gross one. Okay, I'm going to tell you what it's made up of.
All right.
Okay. Vodka, lime juice.
All right.
It's simple syrup with Cheetos, ginger beer, Mountain Dew, and I've got this lime wedge with Cheeto dust all over it. So let's see.
I'm kind of with you to the Cheeto simple syrup stuff. That sounds interesting.
It kind of tastes like a teenage boy playing video games. That's what it tastes like.
That's what that's
Mountain Dew, Cheetos.
Mountain Dew,
that
Cheetos,
is the vibe I'm getting when I'm drinking this. Yeah,
I can see that. I can see that. That's not really bad, but it's not like you don't want to make it at cocktail hour for your wife when you're trying to impress her. I can tell you that.
It's not a sophisticated drink, but you know what?
No.
For She-Hulk, I'm willing to drink it. Cheers, Mark.
All right. Absolutely. Cheers, sir. Here's to another great show.
Wonderful.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus show. Today we're talking about She-Hulk. And for those who may not be familiar, She-Hulk is a comedy about a somewhat snarky and mildly dorky Jennifer Walters who isn't fully able to be herself, but is ready to prove her significant chops as a budding big city lawyer. It's basically a comedic look at the very real everyday struggles of professional women, and as society basically tries to force standards and expectations on them that aren't required of men, there's just this one thing: she happens to be a Hulk, so she also has to handle with what being a hero looks like on top of all of this. And as the title suggests, She-Hulk, attorney at law, as it hints at, she ultimately figures out how to be a hero both as Hulk and as a lawyer. I don't know about you, but I kind of did this premise. I love the setup, and it's presented as a 30-minute sitcom, which we hardly get any at all, more or less, a superhero 30-minute sitcom. So what was one? I want to hear both. What was your first thought when you heard that this was being made? And then what was your thought as you watched it the first time and saw the angle they took of this?
So it sounds ludicrous, right? I mean, it's called She-Hulk Attorney at Law.
At law,
so it's like, what? It's the kind of premise that you think, like, when they've run out of every idea that they could possibly come up with. Like, okay, a lawyer. It's like those later episodes of Night Court, where they've got superheroes coming in and things like that. Yeah. Okay, but it's really a great show. It's hilarious.
It is.
And
it is.
It's kind of like the 1960s Batman, where it's campy on a level that that it's entertaining, and they make fun of the superhero genre. And so I love that whenever it can be both a product of the superhero genre while making meta commentary on the whole genre.
And it's great because it actually there's this cool backstory. It's actually exactly what the comic book was in terms of how they're doing this. Like the main character, Jennifer She-Hulk, is very frequently breaking the fourth wall and talking to us. And people are like, "Oh, he's ripping off Deadpool." No, that's what she did in the original comic book back when the Hulk was on TV. Lou Ferrigno Hulk was on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened, the reason there's even a She-Hulk at all was the producer. I'm going to geek out. This is our geek out segment.
Do it.
Of course. The producer of Hulk, the television show, was also the producer of the $6 Million Man. And he spun off the Bionic Woman so that he could have the rights over the character, because $6 Million Man was based on something else and he didn't have full rights over it. So Stan Lee, being the brilliant man he was and seeing who he was working with, decided, I want to spin off a she character from the Hulk before this guy does it and then has full rights to it. So he literally, with one other guy, wrote the very first She-Hulk attorney at law. It wasn't called She-Hulk attorney at law, but she was an attorney. That was her job. And it was very snarky and funny and broke the fourth wall. And that's how we ended up getting the show, was Stan Lee saying, I'm not going to let somebody else take these rights out from under me, which made it even funnier at the end of the fourth episode, when someone comes knocking on the door and serves her a notice that she was being sued for trademark infringement, because that's all but what Stan Lee created the series to do, to prevent from happening. So it's this kind of insider's wink, wink, nudge, nudge that went on there. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
It was great.
It's really, I love the show. I find it just fantastic. It is a breath of fresh air that we need right now in terms of comedy, but it also doesn't hesitate to take on the difficult issues. And I love that about it. But one of the things that's been concerning me about it, I don't know if you went and checked out Rotten Tomatoes on this, but it's getting what the review bombed. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this, but it has gotten hard review bombed. For instance, I think almost 32% of the reviews of this show on Rotten Tomatoes are 1-star ratings. And this show in no way deserves a 1-star rating. And review bombing is a thing that's become very popular. Even Miss Marvel, when it first came out, I think it had a 28% review bomb. Like 28% were 1 stars. Once again, does not deserve that. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Knowing that those last two, who happen to feature women, why do you think review bombing has become such, that's a lot of people. That takes a lot of people. What is going on here, man? What's going on?
Well, I think you're right, and exactly what you said, Mark. That we've got strong women superheroes, and there is this whole movement worldwide, but we certainly see it here in the United States right now of renewed misogyny, and I think especially after this Trump era, where we've seen misogyny kind of pulled out from under the rug, as if it's okay again to be misogynistic. And so I think that whenever we see this these folks that are on the ultra far right, they don't even want even something in fiction. They don't want to see they don't want to see women. And so did you see the meme, like after after the queen died, and it said, they've decided to make a man queen. The woke business has gone too far. It's like,
too far.
Like there's this whole story, there's this whole narrative, right, about about being woke and about how if you're actually trying to promote equality in any way, that you're stepping on white men in particular. And so I don't think it's surprising, right, that anytime we see any kind of
surprising.
Yeah,
and it's
beyond
not surprising.
The white man.
Beyond being not surprising, it's also I kind of love that the ultimate, the one that they bombed the hardest so far is She-Hulk, because She-Hulk is everything they're not. She's strong, she's assertive, she's self-confident, she doesn't give a crap what other people think, she doesn't feel threatened by anybody, and she's a woman. I love that she is everything that they're not, and I have to believe that that's part of why they're going so hard at her, because she is very successful at being everything that they're not. And that is, unfortunately, this particular group of folks find things like that offensive, which is, I don't want to be cruel or mean. It's ridiculous. It's almost funny. It's so incredibly ironic. It's not mean funny. It's ironic funny, like crazy ironic.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of the things, I don't want to harp on that too much. One of the things that I love about this show is that it is a smart show, even though it's a comedy. And I think it being about a lawyer, it makes a lot of sense for it to be a smart show. For instance, one of the things that caught me immediately, I'm sure it caught you as well. With a lot of our other superhero stuff, we have things like Uncle Ben saying, with great power comes great responsibility. But this show opens up with Jennifer Walters, the character that's She-Hulk, saying, what is the responsibility of those with power? Do they merely have an obligation to refrain from the misuse of that power, or do they have a duty to protect those without it? I love that this is a smart show that's willing to present it in a comedic way that makes it a little softer and easier for us to take. But it's asking these very deep questions. And I don't want us to go too far into the questions, because I know that's a different segment of the show. But I love that this is the kind of show where they're willing to play. It's written by 3 different women, and they are well awarded with lots of shows that they've already written. And you can tell it finds this amazing balance between smart and funny and self-deprecating and strong and powerful. It's just, I love they're willing to do that.
Yeah, you can tell it's smart because they put the thesis, not just of the show, but of the entire Marvel universe right as the opening line of the show, right? I mean, I would say that that's the thesis of all of Marvel's superhero movies.
I think it might ultimately be, but I don't think any other show has cracked it open. I think
they haven't.
Far too frequently, they kind of go with great power comes great responsibility. And not, we're talking about the issue of, for all people, not just superheroes, is your responsibility to not step on other people's rights, or is your responsibility to benefit society, to do something positive? As she says, to protect those without the ability to do so. Like, what are you doing? What kind of positive responsibility do you have in terms of, are your actions doing more than just not interfering? Are they actually benefiting society? I think that is, I don't think we've seen that question asked so clearly on any other Marvel, whether it's movies, television, comic books, or anything.
I think you're absolutely right. And, while we're geeking out on this, Mark, I've got to say that one thing that I appreciated as a Marvel fan in this show was that we got like a couple of answers that we hadn't received yet. So like we got to see how the Smart Hulk was created. And we hadn't gotten an answer to that. We got kind of an explanation to the whole Natasha lullaby thing that we hadn't gotten an answer to. It was like, well, why is she singing to Bruce Banner? And here's something else that I was struck by, Mark, whenever I was watching this. We find out that if you're a Hulk, you can drink a whole bunch and you get all the fun parts of drinking, but none of the drunkenness. And so here's the thing, Mark.
But they do have
they do have hangovers. That's the thing. Here's the thing, Mark.
But they're not.
I think you have a superhero power. I think you've got a super Hulk power, the ability to enjoy the alcohol without the drunkenness.
Right. You have seen this firsthand when we were at Wild Goose. Very much so. That it is weird.
Yeah.
People think it's great. It's actually sort of a curse that it takes Hulk-size imbibements to have any real impact. But yeah, no, I when I saw that, I kind of looked at it and went, ooh, maybe I have the enzyme. Maybe I have that family enzyme. Right. Maybe I should get that Hulk blood. And
if you can get the Hulk blood.
Maybe I've got the size already. I mean, it would be just a little bit of a change. I'd be like, oh, look, Mark's hulking out. Oh, he's an inch taller and 3 inches wider. That's great.
Yes, for me, it would be like a foot, like you're blessed with height, Mark. You are blessed with height.
Well, I'm also cursed with width. So, All right. We could go on and on, but I think that's a good place to move and pivot towards our Theo-Politico segment, which we'll hit right after this drop.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show, where I am coming to you live from my garage, and Mark is coming to you live from the beach, and we are glad that you could join us today.
I'm so jealous of you.
As you should be. It is 90 degrees in my garage right now. I am sweltering. You
got your own personal sauna, and I'm stuck here at this sandy, windy crap. Man.
Yeah.
Lucky
Damn
you.
it. Somebody's got to do it.
And in San Diego. Man.
Okay, Mark, you brought forth, I think, the central thesis of the show. I want to know what you think about it, okay? So she says, because this hit me, like the opening lines of the show, I'm sitting there ironing my clothes, and I get this powerful statement. I'm like, whoa, she did just articulate this whole thesis. Okay, so she says, with the responsibility of what is the responsibility of those in power? Do they merely have an obligation to refrain from the misuse of power, or do they have a duty to protect those without it? And so I want to know what you think, Mark. Do those who are in power, I mean, like say the president of the United States, or someone in a position of authority like that, where they have real control over people's lives, is there obligation to just refrain from the misuse of that power, like ensure that, say, Congress isn't misusing its powers? Or do they actually have an obligation to help those in need and living on the margins? What do you think?
I think people won't like my answer to this. So thanks. What I want to be,
you're welcome.
When I'm on vacation, what I want to be when I'm on vacation is hated. I think they do have a duty and an obligation to not misuse that power. I do not think it's a duty and obligation to make the world better. But I do think it is morally inexcusable to not leverage that and make the world better if you can. I do think there is, but to say that there is a duty or an obligation, I think pushes a expectation of on a certain part of society on a person and say, well, you must conform to this. And I think that there has to be a lot more freedom in that. I would say that if they are not willing to use their place of power or whatever it is that provides them power in a way to benefit society, benefit other people, then they're not so powerful anyway. They're actually very weak in many ways. But trying to say that it's a duty or an obligation for me is putting societal expectations on them that are good societal expectations, but that we're celebrating this show that is saying there's societal expectations put on women that aren't. We shouldn't be forcing expectations based on what society prefers. We should be looking at outcomes. So it's not for me, it's more about the outcome. And so, yes, you have a duty not to hurt people, but it's not a duty to make them better. What I always told my kids growing up as a minister, and you talk about preachers' kids, said, look, 3 things. 1, I don't care what you believe. And here comes the responsibility of not interfering in a negative way or whatever. I don't care what you believe, but as long as it doesn't hurt people, and that is a responsibility. That's a responsibility that you must have. And then you get bonus points if it helps people. And that's how I see it. It's simplifying it for my kids. That's how I put that kind of larger moral concept is believe what you want to believe, as long as it doesn't hurt people. That's the core right there. And then you get bonus points if it helps people. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like they have to hate on you too hard, Mark, because it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that that maybe it's not a responsibility of those in power to help people, but they do have an obligation not to hurt them. But they probably ought to, if they're decent human beings, try to help people. And I think that's right. I think though we maybe not as in depending on who's in power, but I think certainly if people identify as Christians, that like without imposing our beliefs on one another, because certainly there are people who try to do that, to be in positions of authority and impose their beliefs. Like, I don't know, say like the right to choose. Like we get people taking that away because that's their own belief, right? That's a belief that people are imposing on others that take away the right. But I think that if there are people in power who are using their ethical obligations that they get from Christianity, like say protecting those on the margins, that I think that those are good and decent human qualities, and that those are religious things, but those are also just things that if you're a good humanist, that you want to take care of, or you just believe in the common good, or you believe in the upbuilding of society, that those are things that
you can actually come at this from a very selfish way, and I don't care if you do. Like when other people are hurting, when other people are suffering, it pulls all of society down. It has a negative impact on the world. The more people we lift up, the better the world does, the more productive the world is, the more enjoyment and happiness that is present in the world. You can be completely selfish and need to recognize that helping someone else helps you. It just does. And that's actually a theological connection, because we're all, speaking of connections, we're all connected. It's recognizing the reality of how deeply connected we all are. There's a lot of us who happen to think that connection is part of what we call God. But you can even approach it from a very selfish way and recognize that connection, that connectedness of life, and that you need to support and bring each other up if you only want, if for no other reason that you want your life to be better.
I mean, you could even say things like it's good for the economy if not everyone is struggling, right? So if people aren't burdened with, say, student loans that are a crazy amount, or people aren't burdened by other kinds of debt, that if we're willing to forgive those kinds of debts, that's stuff that is not just a moral and ethical obligation to forgive debts, but that that's good to stimulate the economy. And so we can use those kinds of arguments too to think about how we help people and lift people up. So one of the other things that I was struck by, Mark, and I'm curious about this, is that we see in She-Hulk that Jen is like instantly better at being a Hulk than Bruce Banner is, right? Like he spent 15 years. Yeah, he's written all of these journals, these instruction manuals, and she doesn't need them. She just inherently knows how to control anger, and she says that comes from being a woman. And I was curious about your perception about this, Mark. Is it inherently harder to be a woman? And I realize the irony of asking you this. You're two guys talking about that. Mark, what do you think? Is it hard to be a woman? Is it harder to be a woman?
But I also realize that you and I both already understand the answer to this, and that you're tossing me a softball, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, of course it is, man. We're in a male-dominated society that belittles women. I mean, look at this. In order to be taken seriously, all right, Jennifer, for her to be, she has to hulk out at the job. She has to hulk out to save the courtroom, and she even has to hulk out to get a date. Yes, society is stacked against, like even in this show that is trying to recognize the pressures that society, the negative pressures and expectations society puts on women. Even in a show like that, what we're seeing, at least early on, is the only way she earns the respect that she already deserves is to be Hulk. She had to be Hulk to get the job. In order, like, she's in the courtroom, and the only way she saves everybody in the courtroom, at least for one scene, is to be Hulk. She's trying to get dates. She can't get dates. The moment she does it as Hulk, she gets dates. So, yes, of course, society is structured in a way that women are constantly having to be more aware of their emotions, because men will use it against you if you let your emotions be real, and having to control them in a way that makes them much more aware and adept at who they are emotionally than most men are. And men, particularly like in the conservative world, are celebrated for letting their negative emotions that are hurtful, letting them out, celebrated for it. And even a small portion of that from a woman is looked down upon, and like, oh, she's a loud person, and she's, bossy, and she's blah blah blah. So yeah, of course, man, it's obscene and horrible, and I love the show is dealing with it. I mean,
it's like,
right?
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's like whenever people said that Hillary was going to be too emotional as a woman to be president, right? And then right after she lost the election, right? Have you seen this meme where she goes out and she does a documentary, starts a podcast, contributing to charitable foundations, all this stuff. Whereas Trump loses the election and he pitches a hissy fit for 2 years, right? Like, tell me again that women are too emotional to be president. So I love this. Jeannie Marie, who's watching live, says if men had to do what women have to do, then we would be an extinct species. And I've got to say that my wife tells me that all the time. She says, I think that's fair. Caleb, there's no way men couldn't do it. I don't think men could do it.
But listen, here's the thing. I'm looking at that exact same comment, and Jeannie, you're on point. Yeah. The sad part is, in order to say that, there was a little piece of her felt like she had to put an LOL on the end. And you know what?
It's not an LOL. You
don't need the LOL there, because that's just dead serious. That is that's real. But society is structured in a way that in order for it to be a little more palatable, you put LOL in it. In order to make a superhero show about how society represses women and has unreal expectations of them, you have to make it a 30-minute sitcom.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, not that I don't love the show. Not that I don't love the show, because that is a reality. I'm not. Jenny, she did what she needed to do. That LOL, you needed to do that because a lot of people need to hear what you just said. We needed a 30-minute sitcom about this shit because a lot of people need to hear what it says.
That's right. We do. And this brings up a ton of real political issues, and it's funny because it is a sitcom, but it brings forth a lot of issues. But we're not going to be able to talk about it anymore because we got to move into our next segment, the "Make Me Look Stupid" segment. But before we do, here's how I want to end this segment.
Yeah,
we do. Here's how I want to end it, Mark. Okay, I want to end it with a quote from Jen when she's talking to Bruce Banner about controlling her emotions. After she's gotten all this down, she can shift into She-Hulk and back to Jen. Here's what she says. She says, "I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled on the street by incompetent men, when incompetent men explain my own area expertise to me, because if I don't, I'll be called emotional or difficult, or I might literally get murdered." And boy, ain't that the truth. So let's end this segment. Let's go and try and make each other look stupid, Mark.
Moonshine Jesus, nobody in the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Thank you for sticking with us to the final segment of the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are very thankful. We've had several technical difficulties. We tried to broadcast once already, and it took me about 4 or 5 minutes to figure out that the power cord that I was using to extend myself from out into this the deck overlooking the beach went bad. But I tried everything else first. So those of you that are still with us, you are troopers, and we are genuinely thankful for you.
Absolutely.
But so we've entered into our Make Me Look Stupid segment. And frequently I let you go first. I try to be benevolent director of this segment.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm not sure that I have the best question. I think it's an interesting question. So I'm going to go ahead and go first since I get to lead this. Okay. So here's my question, and it's based on my a thesis that I have. I think my thesis about this show, in a lot of ways, is that this is a show where superpowers are being used as a symbol for female liberation. So my question for you is that part of what they're doing? And part two, is that a good thing?
I don't know. I think
I just need to say, since the segment's called "Make Me Look Stupid," and your first response was, I kind of feel validated already. I wasn't sure, but I feel a little validated.
Not only was it but it was also I don't know. I don't know. Like that might be the definition.
Points. I get points. I get points.
Where's the scoreboard? Why don't we have like a digital scoreboard on that?
We really should. We should have a digital scoreboard that pops up during this segment that shows how many each of us have managed to win so far. All right. So, Mark, I have helped you significantly stall answering this. I don't know if it's an interesting question. I think it might be. So superpowers being used as a symbol for female liberation. One, do you think that's part of what's going on? And two, if so, is that a good thing?
Maybe, although I mean, this is which question is which
question are you answering? Maybe to. There were two questions there. That's the answer to any damn question. No matter what the question is, you can go, I don't know, maybe. You like chocolate ice cream? Maybe.
Well, you know, and whether or not it's a good answer or not depends on whether you're like looking off into the distance and stroking your chin. Maybe.
How contemplative you are when you say maybe. I'll give you that.
The first question, maybe. Okay, so look, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we don't have a lot of women with superpowers. Right. So the Wanda is one. But I mean, even
but I'm saying in this particular show, because I really think it stands out more here than anywhere else in the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
it does feel like, at least in 4 episodes in, that superpowers are standing in, being a symbol for female liberation, because we have a lawyer who was very capable, but really didn't find success until the superpowers kicked in. So are they using superpowers as a symbol for female liberation? And I actually don't think that there's a simple answer to yes. I think that is what they're doing. The second part of my question, I think, is the more important part, because I think that's actually a somewhat complicated answer.
So I still am at the maybe, I think, because I think that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she's one of only a few female superheroes with powers. I'm not sure that she's really. I'm going to stroke my chin too while I'm doing this to give it gravitas. I really feel like maybe
I was just doing it because my beard was getting blown in one direction. I was trying to straighten it up. But you know what you need to do.
I'm doing it to try and give my argument some weight here. Okay,
good. I like it. Okay, sure I'll listen now.
Because look, she doesn't want the superpowers, but they're being forced on her, and so I don't know that she has a choice in this. I think she wants to make her path on her own, and it's almost like she's getting these powers without her consent, certainly, and certainly she's having to become She-Hulk to be successful, also without her consent. So I'm not sure that if it's a metaphor for female liberation, I don't think it's a good one. I don't, because she's not choosing it, and she doesn't want it, and she's having to kind of adapt who she is as a person to be successful. So where I'm landing after all of this circling around, Mark, is I am landing on, if it's a metaphor for female liberation, I think it's a bad one. So
gotcha.
So I've heard you think that it's a metaphor for female liberation.
I 100%
think it's a good one or a bad one.
I 100% think that they at least that's what it is, whether it's intentional or unintentional, I don't know, because the way that they wrote it, it's very clear that the moment she gets her superhero powers, she gets more respect. She gets liberated. Is it good or bad? Now that's a whole different question for me, because liberation, I think, it is necessary for anyone who's being oppressed in any way. So that's great. I can make the argument that it's good because what it is showing is that a woman who is being strong and bold and who she is, and not having to deal with societal expectations, so it becomes accepted and not questioned and not marginalized. And I think that's a brilliant message to give. But I think you nailed the issue with the whole thing, is that it wasn't a choice. Like, so being big and strong is finally accepted in a woman. And I don't mean physically even. I just mean a large personality, strong in opinion, strong in the way you approach life, strong in all of those different things as a metaphor almost. But it'd have been a lot better if she had made this as a choice. And there were lots of ways they could have gone with how she becomes She-Hulk. In the comic books, I believe it was a necessary infusion that happened because she was in some kind of accident. I don't remember specifically. They had every opportunity here for her to be in an accident and him be standing there and her to make the choice of, do I take an infusion from him that might make me Hulk? I think that could have been a stronger way of presenting this, because ultimately it does become a symbol of sorts of female liberation. I wish it had been, to your point, more of a choice and not just something that happened.
I don't know, Mark. I hear you kind of agreeing with me and saying that if it's a symbol for liberation, it's not a good one. It's not a good one. Women have to have choice, right? And so if we're forcing something on, Okay. All right.
For sure.
All right. Good. Okay. Well, we've already established. I said, well, I don't know. The next.
It was a good answer, and I think you ultimately got at the real point of.
Well, I think
it can be a point. I think it can be a point of great liberation, but unfortunately, it wasn't a choice. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Okay, well,
make me look stupid, man. Come on, make me look stupid.
I'm gonna lob you a softball question, Mark, because I just want to know what you think about this. I want to know who you think is the better Hulk. I want to know if you think Bruce Banner or if Jen is the better Hulk. What do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that ultimately, I prefer Jen, man.
Yeah.
I think here's the thing about Bruce. Bruce is way too When I'm a human, I'm very smart. When I am Hulk, I smash. And for me, that's like where's the subtlety in that? Where's the reality in that? Where is there any kind of nuance? I love that Jen is very much two different people. Like when she and she comes from Black Mirror, the actress, and where she played 40 some characters that were all the same person with different personalities, clones, and all of that. And so she's really great. We almost have three characters. We've got Jennifer, we got She-Hulk, and then we got the person who talks to us through the fourth wall, who is slightly different, almost like a narrator, and she does a great job at all of them. I think I really very much prefer her version of Hulk because there's so much more nuance and so much more like with Bruce, the two battle each other.
Yeah.
With Jen, they really sort of help each other. They grow from each other. They learn from each other. And that's so much more real to life for me. I really kind of like hers. What about you? I mean, where would you go on that question?
I'm going to give a simple answer. It's not nearly as deep. I like her better because I've always found Bruce Banner annoying. I don't know why. I just have always found his character to be annoying. So I'm going with her too. And I think, this show's a lot of fun. I can't wait to see where it goes. So that's maybe a good way to wrap.
Absolutely.
She-Hulk. What do you think? And
I completely agree. Can't wait to see where it goes. I think there's a lot of possibility.
Yeah, I love it. Should we tell them what we got in store for next week, Mark?
I think so. I don't know if anyone is a big fan of horror, but I'm not. And the Predator series, the first one I was okay with. I didn't love, I didn't hate, but whatever. And then they seem to get worse and worse and worse. Well, there is a new Predator movie out. It's on Hulu. We hope that you all will go watch it and participate with us in the next Moonshine Jesus show. And it stars for the first time ever, a Native American woman has the lead in a major motion picture. And basically the scenario is that a warrior of the Comanche Nation, her name is Naru, ends up fighting to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth. It is pre-colonial America. It is amazing. I think you will very much enjoy this, even if you're not a horror movie person. It is so much fun and so interesting, and it's great to watch that actress. I personally, it'd be the first time, as far as I know, that someone in a horror movie could be nominated for an Emmy, but I think she deserves it. It's that good. It is that good.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited. It's gotten great reviews. And so I hope you'll check it out before next week. And we're going to do something almost unprecedented. We're going to tell you what to watch 2 weeks out.
First time.
We're trying to get better.
Only the second time ever on the show that we're going to do this.
This is great planning, Mark. You and I, we're planning really well. So
I should go on vacation more often.
You should. I mean, why not? Live your life at the beach. So in 2 weeks from today, we're going to watch the new Avatar movie. So you're going to have to go to theaters to watch that. But go ahead and watch it.
It's not the new one. It's the old one being redone and rebroadcast. And it's in anticipation for the new one.
How about this, Mark? Is it in 3D? Remember that was the big thing.
That was the
big thing, right? Whenever this thing was released.
Yeah, I haven't actually read it, but I think there's no way that they're not doing it in 3D. And now you've got the I call them rumble seats. I don't know what you really call it, where you can actually sit in the theater and have the physical experience as they're flying through the air and different things like that. I'm sure it's all of that. There's one in town. I will say right now, I'm going to go watch it that way. I've never watched a film in that environment, but other than at Disney World kind of stuff. I'm going to do that. I think that would be a fun movie to re-experience in that environment.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I can't wait to watch it again.
All right. So thank you all for being here on the Moonshine Jesus show. And we hope to see you next week as we look at Pray. And Cheers to you, Caleb.
Cheers, Mark.
Catch you next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine Jesus, no lie in the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
I